It's a new week and a brand new episode of the Arkham Sessions. Hello everyone, I'm Brian Ward, and as always, I'm joined by the psychologist to the superheroes, Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
Good day.
Good day, ma'am. Drea, this past weekend was awesome.
It was.
You had a couple successful panels at WonderCon, and together we had our third iteration of the Psychology of Star Trek versus Star Wars panel, which was pretty great. All in all, I thought the con was good. What about you?
I thought it was great. I had a blast. And I appreciate everybody, all the people coming up to me and asking me questions about our podcast. I thought it was so awesome.
It was awesome. I just caught up to the Associated Geekery podcast and noticed that a couple episodes back, we were listed in their picks of the week. So we just want to thank them for the shout out, and we want to give them one in return. I've been listening to those guys for quite a while, so it was really nice to be called out by our friends Ryan and Mac and the rest of the Associated Geekery gang.
Cool.
Well, I don't want to delay this any further because I'm actually super excited about this episode. This week we're talking about Beware the Grey Ghost. And this one's pretty special. From the opening scene, you actually realize this one's special. We start out in black and white, which, as we know about the Batman, the animated series universe, means we're watching television.
The Grey Ghost.
A television equivalent to a classic hero like The Shadow or The Lone Ranger.
Or Zorro.
Or Zorro. Yeah. Any of the action sort of serial shows, that our parents grew up on and then later we started to watch. In a series of flashbacks, we see that young Bruce used to watch the show with his father and would even fall asleep before the end. And we see Thomas pick him up to take him to bed.
Time for all little gray ghosts to be in bed.
It's the closest thing we've seen to a real bond between Bruce and either of his parents, really. In these scenes, we really get our first glimpse at why Bruce decided to become Batman. Mm-hmm. This relationship that was ripped from him. This is the first time that we've really seen it. Mm-hmm. Turns out there is someone blowing things up in Gotham City, and it looks very similar to the explosions we've seen happen on the Grey Ghost TV series. So it seems there's a copycat in Gotham as we see explosions popping up around the city, preceded by a weird whirring sound. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Gordon gives Batman a note.
Pay up or pay the consequences. $1 million in cash or the Gotham Bank is next. Signed, the Mad Bomber.
This was a note that was identical to the episode of The Grey Ghost that Bruce remembers watching with Thomas Wayne. But unfortunately, as we pointed out, Bruce never made it to the end of that episode, so he doesn't know how it ends. So Bruce decides to visit a fat, freckled, or acne-riddled ginger video collector or store owner with a filthy countertop.
Well, he can't find the episode. It's not like now where you can look it up on YouTube or, order the Blu-ray or DVD. You probably know this more than I do. It is still difficult to find some older shows.
Absolutely.
But he has to go to some guy who has just this library of originals and reels and copies on VHS of old shows.
Yeah.
And the guy, that he goes to, you could tell that this guy is just a total geek of television series. And that's what they really wanted to show. Now, they made him a ginger. Yeah. But,
he's got 2 straws in his soda.
He's like a soda-addicted geek who apparently says very proudly,
I got it all. Anything you want. Name it.
Except the Grey Ghost.
Except the Grey Ghost.
Nobody has it. The studio that made that show, Spectra, it burned to the ground 20 years ago. The negatives went up like kindling. Real shame.
Look, I don't want to say that the guy's a liar, but this is actually where my day job comes in handy. Your day job as a psychologist. This show is where your day job comes in handy. This moment right here is why it's handy to have me as your co-host. Look, in 2008, Universal Studios actually had a fire.
Oh boy, here we go.
That actually destroyed thousands of video masters. of their television series and films. And I was producing the TV show, the classic TV series Leave It to Beaver for DVD at the time, which you can buy from Shout Factory as a complete series. Look, this fire would have affected my job greatly in that the masters that I would need would not exist if they actually kept negatives or prints at the studio. Typically they don't. The thing is, negatives and prints are usually kept in the salt mines. There are vaults underground in these salt mines where they keep things like prints and negatives and originals and things like that for this very reason.
When you say salt mines, do you mean just below, like the basements below some of these studios or
No,
buildings?
they are literally salt mines. There are salt mines in like Kentucky, salt mines in, there are I think something like 14 salt mines around America that are used for all kinds of things. I mean, you could use, really basically, it's like once they stopped using them as mines, they started using these tunnels for all kinds of things.
Why don't they just use regular vaults, like the Disney vaults? Is that
Well,
that's
the
not a
Disney
real
vaults
thing?
are in salt mines. The thing is, this is extraordinarily valuable because you're putting everything, things like film, need to be stored in cold temperatures anyway. Otherwise the celluloid starts to degrade, becomes brittle. I mean, that's why we've got things like the American Film Institute and stuff like that who are preserving films so that we don't lose them forever.
Right.
They actually put a certain number of films on a list every year, and those films have been chosen by the American Film Institute to be preserved so that they exist forever. So you keep things like this in very safe places. Underground is a great place to do it. In these salt mines where it's cool, you've got vaults. And
So when Disney says that Pinocchio is going back in the vault, it really is
very well
going
could
back
be
in
going back into the vault. But here's the thing: is like Universal Studios absolutely lost thousands of masters.
No.
But they lost videotape masters. Like these aren't the original negatives. These aren't the original prints. When the Leave It to Beaver masters burned, the insurance money actually helped them retrieve the original masters from the vaults, and they actually did a really nice high-def transfer of them. And all of this was made possible by the fact that there was a fire. So it actually worked out in our favor at the time. It's presumed that maybe this was a small studio, Spectre Studios, he says, and it burned down 20 years ago, and it took all of the surviving masters with it. Bruce hits up the Television Actors Guild and finds the actor behind the gray ghost mask, Simon Trent. Now, this is interesting, too, because as you mentioned, we don't really have the internet. Or Bruce doesn't have the internet at the time. Like there is no IMDb.
Right.
Presumably.
He has to actually sift through large books. They look like yearbooks.
Yeah,
like
they're basically like
pictures
yearbooks.
and names.
And he's living right here in Gotham.
Sadly, though, Simon is going through rough times. Like many actors his age, he can't pay his rent. He can't get a job because he's been typecast. This is where things really start to hit a little close to home because the man playing Simon Trent is none other than Adam West.
So the voice of the Gray Ghost is Adam West.
Adam West.
Most people know this, but Adam West is the first sort of recognized live action Batman in the very popular 60s TV series Batman.
Yeah. Up until Michael Keaton in 1989, you would think Adam West if you were talking about a live action
Right.
Batman.
And so this is the voice of Adam West, roughly 25 years.
Yeah, 66 to 92. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at a considerable amount of time. And at this point, Adam West is basically only known as...
Well, you've typecasted him as Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that part of that is his own fault. After the series ended, he actually had a really hard time distancing himself from Batman, but he was also making regular public appearances in costume as Batman after the series had been canceled. He was doing car shows, and he was doing other events like comic shows. And he was doing, whatever, dressed as Batman with a big banner behind him that was like, "Meet Batman, Adam West." So it's not like he was trying that hard to distance himself. And honestly, reportedly, Cubby Broccoli, the producer of James Bond, even offered the role of James Bond to Adam West in 1970, and Adam West turned it down.
Wow.
So, I'm sorry, I have zero sympathy for Adam West, because if it's true that Cubby Broccoli offered him another iconic role, no sympathy. Like, you don't have to have been typecast as Batman. You could have been typecast as James Bond or any other. It's not too bad when you've got two characters that you are best known for.
Well, maybe he was suspicious of a guy named Cubby Broccoli.
Cubby? Well, but up to that point, Cubby had done quite well with the with the James Bond franchise. So
one might say, like you said, that Adam West was attached to being Batman. And when I say that, I mean he's recognized and celebrated as Batman. When he's in the suit, he gets the accolades, the attention, the praise. Not that people think he's a superhero, right? But he certainly experiences that that admiration. And it's also, being an actor, there is that stardom aspect, and
right.
it was at its best when he was Batman. Unfortunately, he was not really seen as anything other than Batman. That's not a terrible character to be associated with for the rest of your life.
Right. Anyway, in a last-ditch effort to make money, we see Simon Trent selling off his memorabilia at Yester Toys.
You sure you want to get rid of this?
Positive.
But that night, he falls asleep and wakes to find his collection is back, along with a note to meet a friend at the Gotham Art School at midnight. He does just that, carrying a box with his old costume under his arm, and finds Batman waiting for him. Batman says that he needs the Great Ghost.
When we look at some of the scenes with Simon Trent, the actor who plays the Great Ghost, you can see that he's disappointed in himself. You can see that he's feeling depressed and sort of hopeless and unsure about, he's a bit lost. And it's very sad to see, because he's older in his years. He clearly has accomplished a lot. You can see that in this fictional world, he meant a lot to some people.
Right.
And he meant a lot to Bruce Wayne.
But he doesn't know it. Like
he doesn't quite know it because he doesn't experience it anymore.
Right.
The kid in the toy shop tells him, these toys aren't really selling anymore. I've put them on sale and people aren't really buying this stuff. I'm really sorry, but I can't give you much for the costume you want to sell me.
Right.
The original costume that you wore in the TV series.
Which is why it's so meaningful for him when Batman actually tells him that he was his hero, because he actually says it did mean something. Which is a great moment.
Yeah, there's a moment there where he goes to Simon Trent and asks for his help, because he, like you said, he doesn't remember what happens in that episode. He's pretty sure that this person who's planting bombs in different parts of the city is emulating this mad bomber from the original Great Ghost episode.
Right.
And Batman is pretty sure that Simon can help him. But we see this interesting exchange where Simon refuses to help. Again, to me, that's coming from a place of already feeling quite disappointed, down on himself, feeling like he doesn't really, have any effectiveness anymore as a person, and doesn't believe in himself, essentially. So he turns him down.
And it may also be a bit of a defense mechanism. I mean, we've seen it in real life before. Certainly, like I said, Adam West had a hard time distancing himself from Batman. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy had trouble distancing themselves from Kirk and Spock. I mean, Nimoy even went so far as to write a book called I Am Not Spock.
Yeah.
He followed that up later with a book called I Am Spock. But
I'm just kidding. I'm totally Spock.
there comes a time when you have to embrace it, which, by the way, Simon Trent does in the episode. But what's interesting here is Batman himself can't necessarily distance Simon Trent from the role that made him famous either. He provides him with his old costume and expects him to actually wear it and help Batman with the case.
It's kind of, I think it's kind of a childish belief.
Yeah.
Because remember, he still thinks of the gray ghost the same way he did when he was a kid. He was just so much in adoration of this gray ghost character, and the gray ghost had this mission that was very important and special to Bruce. And so I think, in that moment when he comes to Simon's apartment and, pleads him to help him, I think he just really does believe he is the gray ghost and that he has answers and that he'll be, the superhero that Bruce wants him to be in that moment. And I do think that's a childish fantasy, if you will.
I'm not the gray ghost.
I can see that now.
Later, after Batman's gotten the episode that he needs from Simon, because Simon's got his personal stash of all of the episodes, he's really disappointed when Simon lets him know that he's really just an actor, that he's not the Great Ghost. Let's talk a little bit about Bruce's hero worship here. Because frankly, he's starting to creep me out a little bit.
Why?
Man must be, we're going to say Bruce Wayne is probably, at this point, in his 30s.
Yeah.
He's in his 30s. He's still holding on to the belief that that this guy should put on a costume. Like, he's having trouble separating the actor from the character. So he's one of those people who's sort of like, hey, look, if you put on this costume, you can help me solve a crime. And
but he does it. Remember, he's Batman, so he.
Yeah, but Batman's not an actor. Bruce isn't an actor, and Batman isn't a character.
But I think he believes if I could do this, certainly the Grey Ghost could do this. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, Bruce Wayne, aka Batman.
Is this Bruce Wayne or Bruce?
Bruce Wayne, and Batman. He has very black and white kind of rigid thinking. That he's, I think that he truly expects this older man to put on the suit and be this superhero. And he doesn't, like you're saying, he holds on to this image of him the way that he did when he was a child. And he's never let go of that. So he's disappointed to see that this older gentleman is sort of saying, no, this is the reality. I'm not that person. I was an actor. I don't even remember how that particular story ended because there were so many episodes. It's just a story.
And by the way, again, to bring my day job into it, I interview people regularly who were on successful TV series and even some not so successful TV series. And I interview a lot of folks, voice actors especially, for animated series. They don't remember these shows because they've not necessarily watched them as many times as fans have.
Right.
So where fans might remember that combination to the lock of the safe in episode 113 of whatever, the actor who punched in that code has no idea what you're talking about. All they know is they showed up to work one day and they shot an episode, probably out of order. We don't even know if they necessarily ever saw the final product.
Yeah, this is sort of like the kid or adult who goes to a convention, stands in line or goes to a panel to meet his or her favorite actor or actress who plays this character that they just adore and love and are a huge fan of. And then they learn something that makes them realize this person is not that character, or
right.
This person is not, as perfect, as angelic, as heroic and powerful as their character, because no one can.
It's the famous Star Trek sketch from Saturday Night Live, where you've got all of the guys dressed up in costume asking William Shatner this question at a Star Trek convention, and eventually Shatner delivers the controversial line, "Get a life."
Wait, that you can do better than that.
Get a life. I'm not going to do the whole get a life, because he didn't.
He sounded exactly like that.
When he does, no, the thing about Shatner is when he does exclamations, it's very fast. So it's get a life.
And you can't blame actors and actresses for actually wanting to be themselves too, because now remember, they have their own identities, and
right.
Bruce / Batman wants this person to be the Gray Ghost. And I think this Simon Trent, this older gentleman, has every perfect right to say, that's not me. That's a character that, you kind of put on this pedestal. I am this man who is struggling to get, my life together, my job, and pay the rent. And I don't even care. I mean, that's the issue here, is I don't care about Gray Ghost anymore. You do. You care about someone that doesn't even exist. And that's where I think you and I can agree that Batman is holding on to this ideal, hero or character that he actually thinks is a real person.
Well, and we see later, and we'll talk about it later for sure, that Batman actually has a much more personal connection to the Gray Ghost that, even more than we've ever thought. And by the way, it's even creepier than I thought. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So we jump to this scene where Bruce is watching this episode that he borrowed from Simon about the Mad Bomber, and he is happier than we have ever seen him.
He's in his giant theater. Alfred's got, the popcorn going. He's showing the movie. Let's be very clear. Bruce is not sitting with Alfred enjoying the movie. He is by himself.
He is by himself with a gigantic
them.
smile on his face. He cannot take the smile off his face, and Alfred is giving him popcorn.
Yes, but that's imagine that you're watching that episode of The Twilight Zone, or that
robot.
or your favorite episode of Batman the Animated Series, or an original Star Trek episode, one that you remember quite fondly from your upbringing, and watching it now, you do have that experience, that nostalgic, warm, happy, feeling that.
But you also want to share it with somebody.
No, he just wants to be by himself.
No, you want to bring in that person and say, this is something that I loved. This is, watch this. Isn't this moment great? Isn't whatever?
But remember,
and Alfred's there, but there's no talking.
I know,
but
remember the beginning of the episode. He enjoyed it with his father.
Yeah.
His father would sit down with him, and they would watch the episode together. Bruce would be up close to the television screen, wearing his hat and his Gray Ghost costume, and his father would be on the couch reading the newspaper, and just they're spending time together. And so it's not about Alfred. It's not about reenacting that father-son experience. It's about watching something that was very special to Bruce, and I think it's okay that he's doing that by himself, because his father is no longer with him. His father's no longer alive, but this is a way that he can kind of connect with the memory.
If you enjoyed ice cream with your father, and your father passed away, you could still enjoy ice cream with someone else. I mean, there's still a bit of this desire to. It goes back to my whole thing about Batman just having zero interest in connecting to people.
But I would argue that ice cream doesn't give you... ice cream is not a role model. The Gray Ghost was a male, older, even kind of parental role model who instilled Batman's, Bruce Wayne's morality, his vision about what's right and wrong, his notion that people should be protected. And so that's the importance here.
Yeah.
That's something that he can only get from the Grey Ghost.
And in this episode that he's watching, he realizes that the Mad Bomber is using remote-controlled cars.
You've got to be kidding me.
Our episode then basically ends with Batman joining forces with the Grey Ghost, who's decided to come back.
Well, see, that's really important because suddenly
he's now sharing the delusion.
Yes, Simon shows up in the original Grey Ghost costume, ready to, to take on the bad guys, and he's
not
Batman.
qualified in this at all, but apparently he is in Batman's world. Now, but this is where Batman goes nuts. Like, Batman just, like, geeks out. For start, he puts him in the passenger seat of the Batmobile. That's fine. But we've seen him, like, knock out other people. Like, other characters have been, there was the whole hypnotic trance that he put...
you were saying the Batmobile...
When he put Frog under the hypnotic trance so that Frog didn't know where the Batcave was.
Right.
None of that happens. Like, Simon Trent now knows where the Batcave is.
He took him directly to the Batcave.
He took him to the Batcave.
And then went onto the Bat computer...
Hold on, but en route to the Batcave, they were escaping these remote-controlled cars filled with explosives. They throw out an oil slick behind the Batmobile. And behind the Batmobile, these little cars are careening off, hitting public property and private property. I mean, like, they are blowing up buildings and cars.
Yeah.
Like, there's like 6 of them just blowing up.
Hey, we did it, partner!
Batman doesn't care. He just he's giddy. He is driving the Grey Ghost to the Batcave.
It's his idol. His idol is sitting in his car.
Is crazy here. So they drive to the Batcave, and this is where it gets really weird because now we as the audience find out where the Batcave came from.
This place is amazing. It's just like
The Grey Ghost's lair.
it's almost an exact replica.
Then Batman shows off his personal collection of Grey Ghost memorabilia inside the Batcave. So Batman has now turned into one of those people you see in Trekkies.
Explain that.
He is no different than anyone who's created the bridge of the Enterprise in their garage.
Yeah.
He has now created, and by the way, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's something that I personally want to do. But he has created the Grey Ghost. You can't call this the Batcave anymore because it's not the Batcave. It's actually the Grey Ghost's lair reconstructed under Wayne Manor.
And in that secret lair, there is a side secret room of like high-end Grey Ghost memorabilia.
Yeah.
In like behind glass and
Yes. The equivalent, this would be if Ralph Garman, who, if people don't know who Ralph is, he is an entertainment reporter on the syndicated on K-Rock radio station. Huge Batman fan.
And now writer for Batman 66.
Has an amazing Batman 66 specific collection of memorabilia, merchandise, screen-worn stuff, props.
In a secret room in his house.
In a secret room in his house. So that's essentially, if Ralph Garman then built the Batcave under his house and then put this secret room in that Batcave, that is what Batman did when he created the Batcave.
Well, in fairness, Ralph is a huge fan of Adam West, and he's talked about how he's met Adam, and they're now friends.
Right.
They're now great friends, actually.
Yeah,
so,
and now Batman has met Simon Trent, and they are great friends. It's creepy. It is really creepy.
I don't think it's creepy. I think it's relatable. I think this is a way for us to see we're just like him. Anyone who's listening to this podcast probably has something that they're a fan of. So I don't think it's outlandish to suggest that this is a way that we actually can relate to Batman and see that he's a human being. He has role models. He has fictional characters that he idolizes and will, collect memorabilia around. I mean, I kind of think this was a neat story, the way that this was told, because my understanding is that this is unique to Batman the Animated Series. There's no other explanation of the Batcave like this.
Right.
Outside of,
Sure.
So,
I think this was probably Bruce Timm and those folks. I think this episode was a sort of a tribute to Adam West. More than anything else, it was a tribute to Adam West.
And I think it was also a tribute to Batman fans. Because, again, I feel like you can somehow relate to that love of something so much that you want to, collect and surround yourself with things that remind you of that. And again, I can't stress this enough. This was a love that came from the relationship that Bruce had with his father.
Right.
So, yes, while the Batcave and the back room with this memorabilia that celebrates this character, the Grey Ghost, it also celebrates his father.
Right. Well, I'm just going to leave this with the little scenario. One day, Batman invites some rando into the Batcave. Mm-hmm. Brings him in. Says, hey, take a look at my Batcave. And then that guy goes, oh my God, this is totally the recreation of the Grey Ghost lair from episode 66 of the Grey Ghost. The allure of Batman is now a little.
Batman's actually just a fanboy.
Batman is a little askew now. Like, Batman is now Phoenix Jones. It's at the Batcave that these guys realize that the person behind the bombings is actually the kid from Yester Toys, who was buying Simon's stuff. This kid, Ted Dreyer, by the way, was voiced by Bruce Timm. So what's the deal here, Drea? What is the message? The kid's obsessed with toys, like obsessed with toys, and
to the point of violence. Like he
realizes,
he explains that he's a collector of toys and that he loves toys and talks about what toys do for him, what toys can do.
I love toys. They can play songs. They can dance. They can even eat money. Oh boy, can they eat money. All my money. And then I remembered an episode of The Grey Ghost. And I knew what else a toy can do. It can carry a bomb. It can hold a city for ransom. Oh, the power of the toy.
And he's even using a plot line from a TV series he's too young to remember in The Grey Ghost. I mean, like, there hasn't even been a master of this episode for 20 years, apparently. So what is happening, Drea?
Well, and strangely, when we discover who it is, he has a little Batman toy and he's beating it until its head pops off.
Yeah, there's a Batman toy. Like,
of course there's a Batman toy.
This is meta now.
That's
like
crazy.
But somehow I have a feeling Batman didn't sign off on those merch rights.
I don't know. This is interesting because he, this kid who is so obsessed with collecting toys, and sort of interestingly using the toys to then get more money to buy more toys.
I guess
it's sort of interesting.
It's weird,
but I find it.
It's not a good message for collectors.
No, and I think that when I first saw that, I thought, oh, this is sort of a message against consumerism and collections, and then I thought, but this is in juxtaposition to Batman's collection that we just talked about,
right? Which he keeps hidden away underground in a secret room,
preserved very nicely.
So really, that's what he's saying. They're saying, look, keep the collections hidden. Just keep them in the
show nobody.
Keep them in a secret room. Don't tell anyone unless it happens to be your hero.
I think you're onto something. I think it has to do with the accumulation and the collection of things that have meaning and value to you and have taught you something versus the collection of garbage, of trash, of junk with the motivation to harm other people or with the motivation to just have things,
Right.
When the kid is explaining all the greatness that toys are, he's not talking about
The joy.
no, he's sort of talking about all the things they can give him and
The need to collect.
yeah, sort of meaningless and purposeless.
Yeah. So they end up blowing up Yester Toys. And by the way, presumably any store that shared a wall with it. And probably did damage to the stores across the street from the blast. But that's okay, because we cut to the home video release of The Grey Ghost. They use Simon's personal prints, and this is actually something that I've done at Shout Factory. We use prints all the time from personal collections, because sometimes they're just in better shape. But this is especially cool because, like The Grey Ghost, people have waited decades for a proper home video release of the 66 Batman series. But unfortunately, due to legal entanglements, it's never been released until this year. It comes out later this year. Sadly, I'm not working on it. It is my white whale, but someone else gets it. Someone at Warner Brothers.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Who we love, but, it's not me. But it's at this video release where Simon Trent is in costume. One might ask why.
Well, because he's the Grey Ghost.
He is the Grey Ghost. And apparently now he is legitimately the Grey Ghost. Because he has helped Batman solve this crime. But also, like I said before, Adam West used to do public appearances as Batman. And even today, Ernie Hudson still does conventions dressed in his Ghostbusters jumpsuit. So, I don't know.
And some I've seen some Power Rangers show up in their costumes to do signings.
Yeah, well, they got the helmets. They've usually got like the helmets, or they're wearing the colors or whatever. I don't know if I've ever seen them like wearing the spandex, but
I have.
Well, okay.
I've been to Power Morphicon.
And you have seen them. Here's what's weird though. And this is again where Bruce's fanboy or fan, I don't want to say fanboy, but like geeking out gets him in trouble. Mm-hmm. Bruce announces that he is Batman to Simon Trent.
He does not. Wait.
What is wrong with him, Drea?
Bruce waits in line like everyone else. Simon has his table out. There's a giant poster behind him. It says People Weekly with his picture on it.
Right.
It's a big deal. And Bruce waits in line and gets his box set signed by Simon. And then tells him the exact word-for-word explanation of why he is a fan of The Grey Ghost.
As a kid, I used to watch it with my father. The Grey Ghost was my hero.
Really?
And he still is.
And there's kind of a twinkle in Simon's eye as if he's acknowledging, now I know you're
gets
Batman.
It. Oh, Simon totally knows he's Batman. Bruce is announcing that he's now Simon, this actor who's potentially crazy and totally needs the money, by the way. He still needs money. He could go and sell this to People Weekly. I know who Batman is.
He wouldn't do that.
Oh, he totally knows who Batman is. This is just weird. And all of this stems from Bruce's weird fanaticism. I'm a fan. I am a fan of a lot of stuff. I go to a lot of conventions. I love geeking out over things. But if I'm Batman, I'm not telling Simon Trent that I'm Batman.
He didn't tell him directly. Now remember, he can always deny, and he can always he's quite good at the secret identity business. But I think I would disagree with you. I think it's important for him to tell him. It's important for him to reach out and say, "You have shaped me. You have changed my life, and I am coming to you saying, I am Bruce Wayne and
building
I am
the
Batman."
Building the Batcave and showing him your personal collection isn't telling him enough.
Well, and also getting that validation from him, because remember, we've talked before about Batman and Bruce Wayne, kind of being this two sides of this really fragile identity, that he doesn't have a solid sense of self. So to have his hero know, I am Batman, I am also Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And to have that hero, that idol, acknowledge who you are, I think that he needed to have that. And I think that he trusts him. And there must be something behind his philosophy of announcing or telling him that he's Batman, in the sense that if he truly believes in this hero, he will trust him with that knowledge. He'll know that this person will keep his secret. And as I said, he'll recognize who he really is, which is what Bruce really needs.
Okay. And like you said, behind Simon, we see a blown up copy of a People Weekly's cover, which shows that Simon Trent is now back in the spotlight as the Grey Ghost. And there are a couple of cool Easter eggs in this cover. The first is that the shadow behind him is the bat head and ears, because the magazine actually says that the Grey Ghost and Batman solve this crime. So that's pretty cool. But really, the real Easter egg here is the mention of actor Matt Hagen, the man of a million faces. Now, we're not allowed to discuss him for a little while, but Matt Hagen is someone we'll get to know in a few weeks. Just saying. So
Nice.
Stay tuned. So that's all I've got. To be honest, I think this episode is pretty fantastic, but it is clearly all happening in the head of Simon Trent.
This entire episode is Simon's, wish, his fantasy as he's sitting in a hospital bed.
No. Well, hold on. After he sells his memorabilia, he goes to sleep.
This is true. Yeah, in the beginning of the episode, he sells his costume and then nods off.
Simon Trent dreams the rest of this episode. I am, you know what, Drea? I am now very much on board with this philosophy of yours. I love this episode, but seriously, there's a lot that happens here that doesn't make any sense. So I'm willing to buy that Simon Trent has imagined this entire episode. I will give you Batman. I've got Batman in my basement if you give me this one.
You can. I'm not arguing against that. It's totally possible.
All right. I love this episode. The character designs are great. The animation is beautiful. The look at Bruce geeking out is awesome.
And, the beginning, I don't want to ignore that in the beginning of this episode, you see just this really fascinating interplay between what's happening, these buildings being bombed, and Batman kind of reacting, and then the flashbacks to when he's a kid watching the show, and the same things happening in the show. And
the
his
editing
father.
is fantastic.
It's just a really cool start to an episode.
And Adam West's performance is great. I love it. Yeah. So it's totally a favorite episode of mine now that I'm seeing it again for the first time in a really long time. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is especially now, this is the 75th year of celebrating Batman. We have a classic BTAS episode, the voice of Adam West, as you mentioned. And this idea, this notion that we can really adore and love a fictional character.
Right.
And it can go too far, absolutely. But if it has meaning and purpose.
It doesn't go too far if you turn into a vigilante who is cleaning up Gotham City. Like that's, now the real message of this episode is fandom can never go too far.
You're partially joking, but I think that's part of the message here. And again, we've seen the inspiration, the influence, the impact that Batman has had over the last 75 years. And so I don't know. I do think it's a tribute to the fans. And again, the idea that a fictional character can change your life. And, I've shared my experiences with being a fan of Batman and how this actual show, the animated series, has impacted my career choices. And so I absolutely think that it's celebrating that, that positive aspect of being a fan of Batman.
Absolutely. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we're diving into Prophecy of Doom, so come back for that. Until then, find us on Twitter and on Facebook. We are at Arkham Sessions. I'm at bward028, and you are?
At Arkham Asylum Doc.
You can also email us at arkhamsessions@gmail.com or at Drea's website, underthemaskonline.com. Thanks for listening, gang. Spread the good word. We'll see you next week. I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
And we are
The Arkham Sessions.